Are you going to address accountability for white left streamers from Sean the Black? What happened? What happened? What is this?
We, as the left of center movement, including liberals, have spent the last
What
8
happened?
months.
What is this? Don't sludge Sean the Black chat. Yeah, no, Sean the Black is the GOAT. What is chat talking about? What happened? What is this? What's going on? What's the issue? It's about Lolo. Listen to the clip, you dork. Sure.
Radically changing everything about the way we approach politics for straight white dudes. We've radically changed the way that we approach politics as a whole. It's not really 6 years. No, but we've specifically named it, right? We've named it for the past 8 months since the election. They're saying, okay, we are only going to hyper fixate and focus on only how we attract straight white men, young straight white boys. And people got mad at the very clear assumption, the idea of maybe talking to black people. The idea of talking to black people, right, was so radically and fundamentally off-putting to white leftists, but they were totally fine with radically restructuring the entirety of the media ecosystem around politics, around straight white men.
I agree with this, but the one caveat I have is that white supremacy is such a powerful force that I think young black and brown kids, young black and brown men also literally positively respond to white supremacist adjacent or white centric content in a really devastating way. This is part of the reason why. Wait, is he calling you out? No, he's not calling me out. What do you mean? I don't do this anyway. When have I ever literally been like, no, why don't we care about the feelings of white men? I don't do that. I think that is the reason why, as a matter of fact, that's the reason why the Trump movement has become this much more diverse movement. American fascism is not as segmented by racial boundaries as we would normally expect it to be, if that makes sense. In some ways, it still obviously is, because yes, black people don't fuck with Trump, broadly speaking, right? But there is certainly a diversity element that did not exist before, I think. And I would go so far as to say it did not even ever exist in any other historic fascist movements. You don't have just some collaborators. You just straightforwardly have loyal soldiers, loyal servants of white supremacy that happen to not be white. I mean, the most famous neo-Nazi right now is a Hispanic dude, right? Sure, white is a social construct. It's completely made up. But the most famous neo-Nazi in America currently is literally a dude whose last name is Fuentes, okay? Nicolas Fuentes. That's crazy. Yeah, you got Dinesh D'Souza. You got Kanye West trying to do his thing. I don't know. I mean, he's not getting a lot of, I don't know where he is, but it's not like the David Dukes of the world any longer, if that makes sense. It's the whole, yeah, Stone Toss is Puerto Rican. Stone Toss is a very famous Nazi comic, right? He's Puerto Rican. It's just, in a weird way, white supremacy has become more diverse as a direct consequence of how diverse America is. But on the inverse of this, people do respond to white-centric content and white-centric commentary, not only because the definitional socio-political construct of whiteness is constantly expanding to encompass that comfortable 60 to 66% of the population, no matter what, and therefore more and more people bracket under the banner of whiteness. But also at the same time, I think people just respond to that kind of edgy humor more positively. This doesn't mean that you should lean into it. This doesn't mean that you should, create a permission structure around being horrible little bullies to people on the virtue of someone's the color of their skin or their ethnicity, their background. Of course not. but I think it's important to still ultimately recognize like where, like when we're messaging, because that's what we do here, right? Myself, Sean the Black, everyone does this. That's the only caveat I would say is that like it's unfortunately an unavoidable force that you have to be cognizant of. And I mean, this is silly for me to say to a young black man. He already is cognizant of this, regardless. He lives it every day.
Totally fine with that. Legacy media throwing away everything that they've known to be like, we need specifically and primarily a Joe Rogan of the left to talk to only straight white men, and everybody's fine with that. Everybody.
See, that's the reason why I added the caveat, because like Joe Rogan's audience, I'm willing to bet, is fairly diverse, right? It's not just straight white men. Like, it might be like straight white male centric politics, but it's not. It's not. It's just like there's hella Hispanics in there. There's hella Latinos in there. There's black people in there. You know what I mean? It's definitely more on a. It's definitely more divided on the gender side than it is like racial politics. American politics is so busted, man. It's so busted. It's so broken. It's hard. It's hard to put a finger on it. But yeah, no, I'm not missing the point Sean is making. I agree with the point that Sean is making. The point that he's making is the exact same point that I made as well in the aftermath of the 2016 election, when they did this exact same thing in the aftermath of the 2016 election, where everyone was like, what happened to the white working class vote? Where are the white working class? Why did the white working class go and vote for Donald Trump? Blah, 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 blah. We got to win these white working class people back. It's like, it's stupid.
He's fine with the journey to find the one piece of politics, which is how do we create the Joe Rogan of the left? Nobody has any problem with that. But when you have the slight assumption, when you have the notion, the mere suggestion of, hey, let's talk to black people act like you killed God. Like, what are we talking about here? Are we insane? And that's not indicative of white supremacy?
Hispanic dudes possibly, but not many black dudes fuck with Joe Rogan. No, black dudes fuck with Joe Rogan too. Dude, everybody fuck with Joe Rogan.
Nobody bats an eye at, yes, we need to radically shift how we to talk about media as a whole to center straight white men. But when it comes to FD being like, hey, let's go to church and talk to black people, people are like, how dare you? How dare you?
It's ironic. Oh, wait, why would people think I'm like disagreeing with Sean on this? This is literally what I've been saying nonstop. This was a big weakness for Bernie Sanders. This is something that I also personally recognize. You cannot expect people to literally listen to your message and understand it and internalize it just on the basis of your message being good or your policies being good. You got to go to where people are. You got to talk to people directly. Okay? This is certainly a weakness on the left. It's something that I talked about in the aftermath of the Zoran analysis and the Zoran victory within the Democratic Party primaries, as a matter of fact. If you recall, I said one of the things that Zoran needs to do is, and one of the things that the DSA needs to do, one of the things that like a left movement needs to do is to tap into young black men in particular who already feel rudderless, who feel discouraged about their future within the Democratic Party, and try to get them to participate in the political process, but from a left position. You know, like this is a real problem. This is a real issue. You know what I mean? Genuinely. Anyway, we gotta blast off.
How dare you saying that we need to market and talk to the issues that black people face? Yeah, you liberal, you freaking liberal, you wrecker. How dare you say that we need to talk to what black people face?
It's like in a weird way, it still goes along with it still kind of goes back to the idea that like any sort of racialized politics is instantly supposed to be like liberal coded or something. It's not. Like, black people are working class too. You got to talk to them, you know? You got to. This is not, and this country has a long history of revolutionary black politics. It's been gutted and destroyed through violence, like direct state violence, right? Assassinations, prosecutions, And then there's a decent amount of co-opting as well. But ultimately, it is something that any working class movement has to focus on. You know, that's it.
No, black people should just suck it up and be happy with the free healthcare, right? Then like the election happens, be like, wait, no, we have to speak to the needs of white people. We need to speak to the needs of young white men. Why is nobody talking to and reaching young white men? We need a Joe Rogan of the left that speaks directly to their issues. And people are like, hey, can you speak to black people's issues?
Why I was concerned about the way white leftists reacted to the Zoran Columbia story, arguing that Zoran could put African American as the same saying Elon Musk is the wealthiest African American, give me flashbacks to how Bernie supporters acted in 2015. Oh, I know. I talked to FD Signifier about this as well. Guys, that is literally bait. That was literally bait. If you're in this community for 44 months, you have to recognize that that is just bait, okay? First of all, I know people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but we do live in a white supremacist society. So at the end of the day, there is going to be some biases being demonstrated there, some blind spots coming out of a place of privilege, right? When someone even jokingly says that, okay, if it's an ally, you can have a normal conversation with them and be like, hey man, that's like not funny, okay? It's just like kind of weird to say, and that's fair. But recognize that was bait placed in the media, in the New York Times, specifically to invoke this kind of sectarian division, this racialized division. That was the whole point. That was the whole point, so that people, especially like Gen X black people that are understandably pretty tuned in to any sort of like white supremacist takes, are going to go, oh, these guys don't give a fuck about us. That's why the Bernie Bro stuff was so prescient. Like, it was so successful for a lot of people. That plus like the turnout machine. I think Sean is placing an emphasis on the application of responsibility of white leftists to consistently self-reflect and check themselves when they're perpetuating white supremacy. This sometimes does that through the woke of the day thing whenever they hear a POC voice, like you mentioned, saying that's liberal coded. That's not, more often than not, that is literally done on the basis of not someone who is adding to the conversation in a productive manner. Okay. And there's always going to be, in a large tent, there's always going to be people that go, this is not within my comfort zone. Okay. This is an unfortunate reality with coalition building, regardless. Okay. It's for people who are concern trolling and are demonstrating a narcissistic desire to be heard when we're talking about something entirely separate. You feel me? I think people understand exactly where that comes from. You understand it for other things, but I think you probably have seen me do that. You probably have seen me do that for something you care about that you think was a valid point. And then, of course, you go, oh, wait, hold on. This is like inappropriate. This is inappropriate that he said this is a woke of the day.
Issues, you. Get out of here. We're not talking to you. Like, what are we talking? Like, is that not crazy?
Look, the reality of the matter is, if you want to bring in, okay, if you want to bring in people that are born into a system where they've never had to reconsider their stances and take certain things for granted, and understandably have developed like a white supremacist opinion or a transphobic opinion, you are going to encounter biases. You're going to encounter microaggressions, things of that nature. Okay, trying to sanitize that would, if I were to try and sanitize every minutia, everything that happens both in this massive community and just in general on the internet, I would not be able to get across anything that I want to get across. I would not be able to cover anything that I want to cover. You know what I mean? And it would be utterly unproductive overall. This is the reason why there's a method to this madness, if you will. It would be a permanent stun lock, back and forth. But the goal for me is to the goal for me always is to get people who are in the margins to no longer have these kinds of biases over the course of a long, extended period of time. And that's part of the reason why this community has grown so much over the past 8 years, because everybody at the end of the day has some kind of blind spot born out of their privileged position. I understand that, and it would be incredibly hypocritical of me to act as though that is not the case for every single person's starting position.